I'm chewing as fast as I can. The point of this is primarily to test the Lightworks editing software's capability to process AVCHD files properly. There have been some timing issues recently, and which result in audio popping and stuff. So I want to do that through dialogue, because dialogue, you have to hear, you have to know what's going on, you have to have sound constantly that propels the action, and if there are hiccups, you'll be able to notice immediately. So I guess the name of the segment is Life in the 22nd Century. It's not very often that people talk about things in a detached manner. Life itself is an engaging thing, and you often get lost within its thoroughfares. But let's get into it. Let's figure out where we are now as human species. So life is, there's a lot of things in life. It's very structural, I think more so than the previous century. There's a lot of structure in place that propels things without any kind of human input, so to speak. It has always been my philosophy that communications technologies invite communications to the point that it could be argued that they create communication. You look at Twitter, look at internet stuff. Nobody would be talking. It just changes the language. It changes the way people conceive of how things and what things should be spoken of. We get people fired from their jobs over taking photographs of things in their free time. That would never happen previously. There's just such an immediacy of, and I wouldn't even call it thought. I would call it energy, because I don't think a lot of things that people communicate are necessarily reflective or involve intellectual combat, so to speak. There's no kind of meeting of the minds. It's all kind of meeting of the point and click. Look at the YouTube videos. You want to have instant satisfaction. You want to have someone screaming funny jokes in your head, and so fast that you have no time to reflect upon what made that joke funny. What it seems is most amusing is that something is weird. One of the biggest conflicts, and I would say it's not even a conflict, which is what makes it kind of depressing and scary, economic inequality in our great nation. And it's very easy to look beyond and not see, and I would say that's because of structure. Because poor people live in air-conditioned buildings with televisions and have access to the internet. And so some would argue, you've come a long way, kid. How can you complain about being poor? It's very easy to get lost in the discussion and not realize the most immediate facts, which are primarily, you need air conditioner, you need a phone to communicate, you need to stay in contact and stay safe. You need to have a TV to be in tune with the world. Now, I don't use the TV, so I can still understand the necessity of the TV. It's a cultural implement. It helps people feel involved with those around them. I don't use TV. I'm a lonely man. I use the internet, and I still don't feel involved, but I can understand what it means to people. You need a car, and this is the greatest thing, the greatest marvel of our time. These hulking, expensive globs of steel and metal, you need them to live, you need them to get to work. But the poorest among us cannot even afford them, and so they settle, and they purchase a junker car, and so half their money is spent repairing this piece of junk to get to work, to get the money to spend to repair it. And it's a cycle. In the state of Florida, there are some pretty intense fines and stuff involved with the automobile driving escapade. You miss a license payment or something, and you get jacked, and it throws you behind. There's a snowball effect involved. Court fees. You miss one court fee, and then you have a warrant out for your arrest. So that's how $40 can turn into like a criminal conviction, and suddenly now you're a pariah. And it's not. You might say, "Oh, $40 is a misdemeanor. It's a civil crime. It's not a real crime. It's not felonious, but it is in a sense. It weighs upon people's souls. It changes their self-conception. Nobody wants to feel like someone. No one wants to feel like someone who is needed to be called in by the police. So I mean, but you make do. Poor people, the slaves back in slave time had slave songs, which they used to sing to kind of pour out the cynicism of life in a thoughtful manner, in a manner which can make the toughest of times slightly more bearable. There are two ideas which can be explored in this concept in our modern day and age. One is media. What is the point of music? Music has always been about conveying a culture's values. And so back in the olden days, folk music and maybe classical music, I always loved classical music because the cultural value was skill and dedication. For the most part, it was without a chorus, without a word. So it was entirely the result of mind and honing of skill. It wasn't overtly political. And I like that because even though everything is political in a sense, people can escape that through craft and dedication. Nowadays you look at things like, I don't know about Justin Bieber or Lady Gaga or rap music or rock and roll. I know there's not much rock and roll going on these days, but I mean things like, it seems a lot of the things I hear involve like sex and dissipation, the kind of the wasting away of energy on fruitless pursuits. That seems to be the core value in a lot of pop music I hear about. Like Katy Perry's song says, I kissed a girl and I liked it, and she tastes like chapstick. Okay, so what do you want to do? You want to eat that chapstick? What's that chapstick going to do for your existential malaise or what have you? And so it seems to think that music these days has become cynical to the point of destructive. There's no internalized kind of value which propels people above adversity. It seems to create more adversity. What with music about going to the clubs and shaking booties, and I'm not a prude per se, but I do have my picadillos, and I can't handle that. Just because of what it means and the kind of consequences. I would love to have fun libidinous excess, but I don't know how that can occur. It seems so often there is bad results. You get someone creepy stalking you, or maybe you get someone pregnant and you can't pay their monies, or you meet a man who abuses you, or you get drunk and drive and you get into court costs, and or you become an alcoholic, or you destroy your liver, or you smoke ganja and the police catch you because they don't like you to be smoking ganja. How do you explain it? How did the music help you get there? I don't know. I mean, slavery too. Talking about economic systems, it's been like less than 2 generations, and people think that the effects should be dissipated. The ripples should be gone. And that's so horrid. Nowadays, I don't even look to my parents for like a kind of what's the word? Ethnic identity or something. I don't even what's it called? Because history is there. It's in it creates who you are. You watch those movies like Gangs in New York, Once Upon a Time in America. Any kind of movie that deals with New York City, particularly, kind of the melting pot of cultures, and you have so many different diverse groups trying to assert their identity. I don't necessarily mean in a destructive sense. I mean in a matter of surviving. How are you going to survive? How are you going to transplant your folks from one point to the next and still retain who you are? And that was the concern in those kind of ideas and movies, what have you. But I mean, with slavery, it's like you transpose that same kind of New York melting pot of cultures with that kind of concern, and it's like it just seems kind of absurd to imagine that it would suddenly disappear because a certain set of laws were created to kind of recompense for that. And also the politicization, I think a lot of liberals say you can't use the word slavery because it refers to a certain people's hardships, a very real certain set of people's hardships. But I think at the same time, you can't ignore the fact that a lot of the underclass are virtual slaves, albeit they have television sets and can have a little bit of fun at the cost of what? Further indenturedness to whom? I guess to the debtors. And you on the one hand you say America is an economic fun zone. You can start your own venture, and at the end of the day you win some, you lose some dollars, that is. But it can't get too bad. It can get too bad. It always gets too bad. Health concerns. I think it's absurd nowadays. You have Obama saying we're gonna do a health marketplace. No. When has a free market ever assured the safety of our bodies, the safety of our minds and souls? Never. And just look at Ralph Nader. He knows that corporations are about trying to destroy your body in exchange for money. So I'm not saying Obama's doing a bad job trying to get a marketplace or kind of more socialized healthcare. But the whole marketplace concept is such a bad kind of concession to what's rotten at the very core of the system. But there you go, a nice flat little sandwich as dinner.